Imola is set to be an all-important weekend this season, and for a multitude of reasons. Even before Miami, its importance had already been alluded to by a few teams and their upgrade programs. But following the twist in the season that was McLaren's major upgrade package and subsequent debut win for Lando Norris, the first European weekend of the calendar has a renewed and far more exaggerated importance. Red Bull will be looking to clap back hard, having been unable to regain the lead of the Miami Grand Prix from a set of circumstances which typically would see Max reinstated at the top step within a few laps or even mere corners after the safety car restart in the earlier races of the season. Red Bull are insisting that they don't see any challengers actually putting on a championship charge, but could that just be posturing? And McLaren seem pretty confident in their ability to maintain the pace that we saw in Miami, but they seem to be talking an awful lot about next season. So are they just deflecting the focus away from the here and now, or do they truly believe the Red Bull's advantage is insurmountable, with it not only being Red Bull and McLaren looking like they're set to duke it out with renewed firepower? There are certainly a lot of questions to be answered as the F1 circus rolls into Imola. Want to know if McLaren can really take the fight to Red Bull? There's a lot of posturing and claims flying out of both camps, but how likely is it that they can maintain the pressure on the front that we saw in Miami? And stick around, because a certain team in red has been keeping their cards pretty close to their chest, while others make their bold claims. Let's start with those who left Miami riding high after last week's Grand Prix, as McLaren managed to demonstrate that their upgrading capabilities that they displayed last year were by no means a one-off. The effectiveness of their upgrades has now been reckoned to be about 0.4 of a second, but it is yet to be seen if this efficacy can be maintained across multiple races and circuit layouts. The team recovered from a stuttering start to the weekend, with it being fortunate that Norris didn't receive more damage in his sprint race binning by the off-canter Aston Martins. However, despite the tetchy start, down to both getting to grips with the upgrades and the on-track instance, the team managed to do in one weekend what Mercedes has so far failed to do all season: deliver on the potential that they promised was in the car. William Joseph, Lando's race engineer, was asked about the upgrades and their subsequent performance gains. "I am not sure. We put the upgrades on the car, the same like we did in Austria 2023 when we put on a big package. We discussed at length what risk we were taking and how we would try to put those risks aside. And when things behave, it's easy, and if things don't behave, then it's difficult." Which is a pretty standard answer, but as he divulged the processes which the team followed to get to grips with the weekend, Joseph said something that surely would have caught the ears of everyone around the paddock. "In P1 we had an issue and our hearts begin to race, and then it's about how you recover from this. But we have faith in the process that we work to, and we discuss this and it builds and just comes together. The package should favor other circuits more than it does here in Miami. We shall see." So it doesn't seem that we have seen the best of the McLaren yet, and it seems that there is more to come even without further upgrades, which are expected to be coming soon, and both cars being brought up to the same level. Remember, Norris had an impressive weekend with a full-spec car, but Piastri had a brilliant race in a Chimera, so with both drivers at full fighting fitness, who knows what the Woking team are capable of. Someone who seems to be not all that worried about McLaren, or at least he's saying he isn't, is Red Bull advisor Helmut Marko, with the advisor confirming that Red Bull will be bringing upgrades to Imola. The advisor seems to think that Red Bull have enough of a lead on the McLaren drivers at this point of the season for them to not be of concern when it comes to a championship fight, limiting their reach to being mere annoyances on racing weekends. "I'm not worried because Lando Norris is more than 50 points behind Max. Besides, we are bringing upgrades to Imola, which I expect a lot from, but Miami shows that we need to concentrate on the sporting side of things." To us, that first part sounds like a massive dose of copium, as in the longest season in F1 history, you surely cannot write off a competitor who has demonstrated a scary ability to close the gap last year so early on in the season. However, when discussing the reason for Red Bull finishing off the top step for just the second time this season, Marko was quick to insist that it was due to Red Bull's failings and a good amount of safety car misfortune, rather than another team actually closing the gap. "We were just too slow. Max believes it wasn't that serious. The fact is that we were slower than McLaren. Norris would have had a hard time closing the gap behind Max, and overtaking in Miami is also very difficult. But now it is to be feared that Lando Norris will become even more dangerous for him on the track, because the pressure is off now." It does seem that Marco's reaction to McLaren's Miami win was a bit on the brash side, even compared to others within the team, as Christian Horner had a far more measured response in regards to how big of a threat McLaren could be. In his response, he hit similar points to Marco, such as the fortunate timing of the safety car coming out between Verstappen and the leading Norris, while also highlighting that McLaren have certainly taken a huge step forward to close the gap. The most notable question raised by Horner, however, was this: McLaren showed real pace last year at certain times, so how circuit-specific is it? And given William Joseph's reaction earlier indicating that Miami wasn't even the most suitable circuit, it seems that we may see more showings of this real pace as the season goes on. It's not just McLaren issuing questions about Red Bull maintaining their advantage, with Ferrari team principal Fred Vasseur confident that while, in his eyes, Red Bull still have the advantage, they are far more reachable than they have been in recent years. Given that Ferrari are bringing their first major upgrade of the season just one round after McLaren made massive strides with their own, Ferrari seem to be confident that they can start to apply pressure upwards and cause Red Bull more and more headaches as the season goes on. I think it's almost like this since the beginning of the season, depending on the track. Honestly, Red Bull is still ahead. Probably Max could have won in Miami without the story of the safety car. They did the pole position, which means they still have a small advantage. What is true is that compared to 1 year ago, when we were able to do a good job and to put everything together, we are there. It means that we are putting them a little bit under pressure. They have to be more aggressive with strategy. Not only could Red Bull have to be more aggressive with their strategy overall, they might be doing so with one hand behind their back, with Vasseur highlighting that the comfort zone in which they didn't need a second car in the fight to win a strategic battle may well be a thing of the past. They are not anymore in the comfort zone of last year where it doesn't matter what happens and after lap 2 they were in front. I think it's a game changer in the management of the race. This is an opportunity for us, if we are doing another small step, that we will really be in a position to fight with them every single weekend. Sergio Perez's inability to move forward in a race where Red Bull wasn't the dominant car in Melbourne or Miami is potentially something that both McLaren and Ferrari will be looking to capitalize on. If both teams are in the fight up top, with Perez unable to secure that P2 in qualifying or perhaps struggling to make up a deficit in the race, then they will be able to cover off an early pit stop by Verstappen with one driver while leaving the other one out. Or they will be able to do the inverse if they feel Verstappen is playing the long game in a way that wouldn't prove beneficial in the long run. The all-important thing which may dictate how the rest of the season plays out may be the biggest headache provider of all for Red Bull, and that is whether Sergio Perez can be the number 2 driver that he needs to be when the trailing teams are much closer or even on level terms. With McLaren already showing their hand and Ferrari carrying a quiet confidence that their upgrades will pay off, could we be about to witness this whole season being flipped on its head? All the talk of 2024 being a write-off may well end up out the window. But then again, there is every possibility that we could see a lights out and Max Verstappen wins the Imola Grand Prix. Either way, the fact that this is even being questioned sets up Imola to be yet another banger. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Could we start seeing a 3-way fight at the top of the field? We can't see Red Bull winning all of the remaining races, and despite what Helmut believes, 50 points isn't all that much of an advantage. Never mind the 38 that Charles Leclerc is currently trailing by.